Welcome to the Unfinished Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mulvin, and this is a show where I sit down with CEOs, creatives, visionaries, and leaders who are out there changing the world through business, through creativity, through their organization, or through leadership. Because it doesn't matter who you are or what you've accomplished. Even someone like John Maxwell or Peter Drucker, they still have something that they wanted to accomplish in their careers, even at the top of their game. And so on this show, we explore those stories and those journeys here on Unfinished Business with Eric Mulvin.
Unfinished business. Where people in tech connect to amplify. Unfinished business. Human intelligence plus AI. Unfinished business. New shot goals that launch you high. Unfinished business. Listen close and you'll learn why.
This episode is brought to you by PackBiz Outsourcing. At PackBiz, we help software, e-com, taxi, and NEMT companies outsource their support and back office work with dedicated teams in the Philippines. These are full-time remote staff who work as part of your team, handling calls, emails, chat, support, and admin tasks. And then you can improve support, scale faster, and keep costs under control. For example, one client even cut over $600,000 out of payroll a year by switching key support roles like dispatch to PackBiz teams. So if you're trying to lower costs or scale support, visit pack-biz.com to learn more, or you can give us a call Monday through Friday during business hours at 480-771. All right. Today's guest is a Vistage Master Chair and executive coach who has spent over 3 decades working with CEOs and business leaders to help them make better decisions and build stronger companies. Before stepping into coaching, he built and led a successful real estate development company and launched an internally funded venture capital firm. After exiting his business, he felt called to help other leaders grow, bringing the lessons he learned in the real world into the peer advisory and leadership development. Today, he leads multiple CEO peer groups through Vistage and works closely with executives to sharpen their vision, improve decision-making, and create both professional success and personal fulfillment. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Fred Carpenter.
Thank you. I feel privileged to be here, Eric.
I feel honored that you're here too. I really appreciate it.
I look forward to our conversation.
This is going to be fun. We've been talking about this for years. I think I want to say it's been years that we're going to do this. And then I think I had one podcast that ended, and then I planned this one for like a year. Now here we are. So it's been a journey.
Might have been a little bit slow to get there, but the value is in today.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, for the people here who are watching, who are getting to meet you for the first time, why don't you tell us more about Fred and a little bit about Vistage, since that's a big thing you're working on right now.
I guess to give you a little background, because as people look at their careers and say, what was it that got them to where they are at? And I grew up on a farm in South Texas, about 20 miles north of Matamoros, Mexico, and about 20 miles west of South Padre Island. So between the farming, sports, the beach, Mexico, you got my youth.
Man, that sounds pretty incredible. Fun childhood.
And my family had been farmers since 1700. And and my dad said, "You are not going to be a farmer." And so he basically kicked me out of the house and said, "Go to college and get an education and make something out of yourself." And so probably one of the best things that my dad ever did for me was pushing me in that direction and helping me to realize that there are things that I could do more than just be a farmer. And farming's not a bad thing. I worked in it, but it's the opportunities that I had in my life would not have happened if it hadn't been for that situation.
That's incredible. And I think, yeah, I'm curious, at what point did you realize that? Because maybe early on, you're like, man, I can't believe I came from this background. This is crazy. And all these other people here have like business backgrounds, and I was a farmer.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I hadn't thought about that, but that way. But when I went to Brigham Young University and was in their MBA program. And had the opportunity to work in the dean's office of the Marriott School of Business and be the student host of every executive that came on campus to speak to the students or be awarded with anything. And as that host, I got to spend a lot of time with some very unbelievable individuals and listening to them and asking them questions and just picking their brains was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because they changed the trajectory of where I thought I could go and become.
So it was really when you were at college. 'Cause what were you thinking before that?
Uh, I was looking at finding a job, getting my MBA, finding a job. And to be honest with you, it changed my trajectory, because I realized I didn't want to find a job.
Yeah,
What I wanted to become was the CEO, president, or owner of a Fortune 500 company.
that's a huge shift to go from that to I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500.
And it was just fascinating, and that some of the opportunities I had, and as people said, what do you want to do? And I started to change that scope there. It was fascinating watching them change, because then they were really anxious to be able to help me to see the things that they did that helped them to succeed. And those were valuable lessons.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that, you're on the other side experiencing the benefit, but because of that, I'm sure that influenced your later on career where now you're helping coach people all the time.
It did. It was the foundation. The- and so that was really my start. And I'll tell you another situation there. And so what happened is to be honest with you, what happened was I sat down and decided, how could I get to be the CEO? Because I know that they weren't going to hire me as a CEO right out of an MBA program. And so I sat back and said, what are the routes and the routes that I could take in order to get to that position? And it was in the financial area, and accounting firms, consulting firms, banks, uh, and financial divisions of organizations. And so that's where I started to send resumes to and try to find a position in those companies. And one of those was Bechtel. Bechtel is the world's leading privately owned engineering and construction company. And I got an interview there, and I walked in and I did a round of interviews, and one of the persons that I met was uh, was senior VP, and and uh, and he was an individual that was, let's just say, seized the room.
Yeah.
He was big, he was unbelievable, he was dressed immaculately, and I'm a farm boy. And this guy went to Harvard undergraduate and Stanford graduate school,
Gee.
worked for McKinsey, and I'm sitting there going, and I walk out of this meeting thinking, wow, that guy was really impressive. My next interview was with the chief financial officer of the company. And during that interview, I thought it was going really well. And during that interview, uh, he said, where do you see yourself in 10 years here at Bechtel? Without even thinking, I said, in your seat as the CFO.
Wow.
And he looked at me with this kind of a funny look. He looked at me and he says, you got to beat out that guy you just interviewed. And my whole demeanor just crashed,
Oh no.
because here I thought I was competing against MBAs. No, I was competing against seniors,
That guy.
other guys and senior VPs. And I realized, and that changed the way I looked at the world too, because when we walk on the stage, you're competing against the world. You're not just competing with your company or other people in your city or whatever. It really is an international situation. And fortunately enough, they actually liked me. And so I started my career at Bechtel.
All right. So I I think that was your first. No, that wasn't your first job. The first job was the Grand Canyon. So that was your first job out of college.
It was the first job out of college. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a pretty good start and you set the bar high. You set the expectation. They're like, this guy has some pretty high hopes. So what did that do for you? Because I mean, I'm sure that guy's like looking at you extra close this whole time. Like, Let's see what he's made of.
Well, luckily for me, Bechtel's a big organization. so, so I only interacted with him maybe one or two times after that. But it really opened up the opportunity because I was put in their a new division called real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting situation. The situation was is that I had my offer, I accepted my offer, packed up everything we had in the back of a U-Haul. I mean, not a U-Haul, but of a moving van, which took about a third of the space
Not nice.
because I didn't have much coming out of college. And we moved to an apartment in Concord, which is in the East Bay, and began my journey. Walked in the first day and asked where the HR department was. And so they directed me to the second floor, and I went up there and I found the HR department, and I walked up to the desk and introduced myself. I'm Fred Carpenter, and I'm here to meet so-and-so. And she welcomed me into the office, and she said, well, we've got good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? Because the position I was going for was in their finance department, which does billion-dollar deals all over the world in these major construction projects. And so that's why I wanted to be in that position. They said, which do you want first? Do you want good news or the bad news? I says, well, give me the bad news so I can at least finish on the good news. Well, that position in the finance department, it's no longer there. In our business, we expand the contract depending on our backlog. And we basically made the decision to eliminate that position. And so I'm looking at her with this probably droopy face, like, what the?
You just moved across the country or across a couple states.
And they said, but we do have another opportunity. And that opportunity is in a brand new division. I don't know anything about it, but they've asked, but they've agreed to have you come work with them. And it was their real estate division that they had just started. And so that really became the foundation of my professional career, was in the real estate business.
And that's how you ended up there.
Yep.
Okay. So that part of your journey there, how long did you stay at Bechtel?
I stayed at Bechtel for probably about 4 years. And then I got an offer to go across the bay and go to work for a real estate syndication company. And while I loved Bechtel and everything about it was great, and I got the opportunity to actually participate in the construction of several projects around the world, I wanted to get more into the investment side of it. And so I felt that was a way to do it, was working with an investment company that did that. And so I moved over to the other side of the bay and began working for Equitech. And and basically we would go and find real estate projects, and then for the Prudential Base. Mm-hmm. And then basis for investors, then obviously were the funds.
Okay. So you were there, and what did you pick up learning at that position?
There's a lot of money to be made in real estate.
That was your big takeaway?
Because I transitioned from a country boy and went around, and all of a sudden I'm dealing in a situation where I had the opportunity to do about $2 billion worth of acquisitions. And it's a lot of fun to spend somebody else's money.
Yes.
So, and that's what I did for several years until I was introduced to a friend the son of a friend, very close friend of mine. And he came over to me after church one time. He was at church visiting his father-in-law. He came over and he said, well, I hear you're in real estate, and can I have a chance to talk with you? He was an attorney. And so he said, can we have a chance to talk? And we did. Actually, that was the foundation of Glenwood, which was the company that we developed over the next 15 years. Mm-hmm. So 20 years.
And that's where you really built your career then, right? So you started that company?
Yep.
I didn't know you started it.
Yep.
Well, tell us about that, because then I'm jumping ahead to the stuff I know that the audience doesn't know.
John Hanson was his name. I called up John and said, hey, John, because I met him at his father-in-law's house. And then he said, well, let's talk. Well, I finally called him about a month later because he never called me. And I said, "Hey, John, I, I don't know whether this is something you really want to do or not, but I just left my job. I just resigned." And John says, he said, "Well, let's get together." So I flew up to Boise, Idaho, where they were having a reception for his sister's wedding.
Mhm.
And that was our first meeting. And, and we stayed up all night talking about what we could do and how we could do it. And that was the foundation of Glenwood Financial Group, which then later became part of the Glenwood Group, which was uh, our equity fund.
All right. So set that up. Tell us about because that you did some really impressive stuff in that period of time of your career, like crazy, like the stuff that people dream about. Like, and then you were saying you wanted to be a CEO of a big company.
Well, I realized that that wasn't what I wanted,
Really?
because working in that area, you don't really have a lot of control. You have a board that controls you. And serving on several boards, I learned that lesson. And I wanted to have control. I'm not a control freak. Yes, I am. and, and I get to work with Eric a lot, and he knows that.
To be successful in business, don't you kind of need that a little bit,
Oh, you need it.
or maybe a lot of it, depending on what you're doing?
I believe that you have to have a vision of where you're going, and and create plans uh, that can get you there. And you can deviate from those plans, but you need to make sure that you're not deviating from where the goal is. And
Yeah.
so
Which,
a lot of people do. Oh, I'm doing this, now I'm going to go do this, now I'm going to go do this, instead of focusing and building the opportunity, because it took several years. This didn't happen overnight, and was trying to raise money. And one of our first opportunities that we had was to become a partner with a company called Tutor Time. And Tutor Time was a franchise organization on the East Coast. And they came to us to see if we would build one of their childcare operations. And that evolved into a partnership where we would build them and we would operate them. And we would then have the opportunity after 3 years to either sell it back to them or keep it. And it was basically gave us that, because they didn't want to spend their money opening schools. They wanted to spend their money leading and operating those schools. So,
which is another lesson there somewhere. And everything you're saying is like little lessons to learn.
there he is. And as I've driven around Phoenix here, it was been kind of cool. Several of the Tutor Time, I built probably half the Tutor Times here in Phoenix. And I've driven around several sites. They're no longer there because they were bought we were just had a property with our facility, and real estate people bought those sites and converted them to something else. But it still has some great memories of us being here and building our first school in Ahwatukee.
Well, and it's a well-established brand here in Phoenix. And so you helped introduce it to the Phoenix market, or?
We introduced it. Ahwatukee was our first Tutor Times first school in Phoenix, and we ended up selling that division, that company, our with to back to Tutor Time, and that was a fun story. We were out playing golf with the individual that was running that organization, and we were talking about selling the company. We're in that process now, thinking about where we go and what we do and how we do it. So I asked him how much he thought we could sell it for. And he said, "Well, I think running the numbers and everything, I think we could probably sell it for $10 million. There were 25 schools. So that was about 5,000 students. It wasn't 5,000, it was 1,500 students. And I started laughing at him. And he started, "Why are you laughing?" He says, "We're going to make $25 million. And he looked at me like, "You're crazy." We made $25 million.
25 million off of that.
Yeah, off of that.
He was saying it was going to sell for 10.
And they sold it, and we sold it for 25.
Jeez. So that's a
That was
good
big.
lesson there.
It's a big win.
Yeah,
Is don't underestimate the value of what you're doing.
that's huge. I mean, that's $15 million difference. That's a huge that's a huge difference there.
I asked him after we closed the deal. I says, "Do you trust me now?" He says, "Be honest with you, no, because I don't know whether you're joking with me or telling me the truth."
That's funny.
But
So you with the Glenwood group, right?
yeah,
That organization. I mean, you did stuff like that. That wasn't the only thing. Like you did projects like this. Tell me more. Tell us more about some of the other things that you got to work on with that, or what you got to learn through
uh,
running that organization.
one of the another company that we had was off-campus housing for universities, and we are probably the 13th largest provider of off-campus housing,
Hmm.
and we got into that business. We and in around 2015, all of a sudden, there was cash was plentiful. People were doing crazy stuff. They had subprime cash that we're using, and so you were having in the real estate in the housing market there. And in the commercial market, they were doing 100% leverage
Oh
deals.
yeah, like '07. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
leading up to the '08 crash. Yeah.
exactly. And so, um, and that we were in that market and trying to play it on a different side. And the we knew we needed to move out of what we did because all of our money that we had raised was friends and family. We had raised about $100 million worth of friends and family um, monies to do our portfolios, and so we knew that we couldn't succeed on that because it's a much bigger market. And we went to the marketplace in July with to try to find the institution that we would do the investment with, and we ended up finding one. But in the equity markets in Wall Street, they kind of closed down in August, and so when we left, we had 45 uh, uh, companies that had expressed strong interest and signed NDs, non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and the company that we decided to do it with, um, and ready to go in September, when everybody came back, and we negotiated with the company. We were going to put into this new venture a $60 million free and clear off-campus student housing complex, and they were going to put in $100 million of cash.
Mm.
And so that we were really excited about this because we already had 3 more sites ready to go. And so it wasn't like we were just getting the cash and then starting, but we were ready and had also already cultivated the site. And one of our properties was at the corner of Apache and Rural, not the exact corner, but just off the corner on Apache or Rural. I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was, but
I know what you're talking about. There's a Taco Bell right there on the corner.
yeah.
There's a complex right behind there. Yeah.
And that was one of our properties.
That was one of the first like high density buildings in Tempe, like off of when the light rail was built,
Yep.
which is it's a big deal. You guys aren't just building like another housing. It was like, this is the future of Metro Phoenix.
Well, and it was a lot of fun to get to do there and get there. And it uh, and it ended up not working for us because we got the deal done. We negotiated the contracts. We flew into New York City, and then on the I think it was the 15th of September 2008, when we were flew in. We were all excited. The papers were ready. We're ready to sign the deal, ready to fund the deal, and went down to lunch. And that was the day that Lehman Marcus declared bankruptcy. And when that happened, they were one of the biggest players in that marketplace, and it literally caused the crisis that happened.
You were there.
That was the match.
You were there though, like in
We,
the ground zero of all this happening.
we're in a restaurant and we're watching this TV, and they're watching the numbers and just crash in front of us. And we walked back to our to their offices. They said they called up started calling their people that were putting monies in the fund to see where their status was. And they basically all said, we're out. And because they have portfolios where they have values for stock and bonds and real estate and things like that. And so we ended up not doing that deal. And that was a change in my life.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and because right now we're going through this pretty interesting economic time. I don't know if you'd say it's a sudden, but I mean, some of the changes that have been happening the last couple of weeks are pretty sudden.
No.
You see any parallel between like the economy there and what's happening now for like as a business leader that is navigating through this? I don't know. You've been through a couple of these crises.
I have, but if you go back to the crash of 2018, 2008, this didn't happen in 2008. It happened in 2007. There were a lot. They were doing subprime loans, and as a result, when the market started to crash or started to get very wobbly, people were losing a lot of money, and so but they kept throwing more money in, and so 2007 was really the start of where the crash ended up. And so I agree with you, Eric. I see a lot of the same things happening now in different ways. It's not necessarily the cash issue situation, but there's a lot of stuff going on that causes me to recognize that we've got to be very vigilant of where we're going and what we're doing and how we're doing it and who we're doing it with.
Yeah. Yep. And I want to switch gears. We talked about a lot about your professional background, but for the last, I don't know how many years now, you've been a Vistage coach.
I've been a Vistage chair for 12 years, and my transition to being a Vistage chair was interesting. My partner went ahead and started another real estate company. I was a member of Vistage, which is the world's largest organization of CEOs, presidents, and owners who get together and help each other. And I was a member. I was 33 years old when I joined this group. The next youngest individual was 8 years older than I was, because there wasn't a lot of 30-year-olds that owned their companies in the early 2000s. And they took me under their wings and helped me grow and helped me build. And when the crash happened, I went to the group. I went to my Vistage group and said, hey, I got this issue and this issue, and help me through this thing. And immediately they all said, you need to file bankruptcy.
Mm.
And if we'd have filed bankruptcy, we had a lot of friends and family money that had been put into our real estate portfolio. And so if we had have declared bankruptcy, it would have probably bankrupt 100 people, senior citizens that was their retirement fund. And so I told told my group that the big caveat here is I can't file bankruptcy. So you got to help me figure out how to navigate this whole thing and not file bankruptcy. And that's what they did. And
that's a pretty noble thing. I mean,
it was a lot of money, $120 million.
Because I mean, you see the headlines. It seems like every week there's another company out there that's ripped off customers, and there's no intention of paying them back. But you guys did, and unfortunately that's not the stuff that's going to make headline. You're not going to see headline, dissolve company pays back $100 million to its investors. Doesn't bring the clicks that the other one would, but that's crazy powerful.
Well, and one of the things that I learned in this, and my banker friends aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but is that one of the things that saved us and helped us do what we needed to do in order to make sure that we helped our investors was we never used one bank. We had 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it came to time to the banks come after us and so we basically said, you go ahead and file, but we will go ahead and declare bankruptcy. And when we do declare bankruptcy, you're going to wipe out 4 banks, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so we were able to use the money to pay off our investors.
Leveraged all the banks against each other. Well, yeah.
And And that led to where I went from there. And it was May of 2012. My Vistage chair, who had helped me for, uh, you know, for 15, 20 years I was sitting and doing a one-to-one. One of the things in Vistage is not only do we meet on a monthly basis for a full day to help each other. These are CEOs, presidents, and owners of companies uh, who don't have no conflict of interest in the group, so that everybody can open up and talk very freely and openly, so they help solve each other's and help each other figure out ways to go and where to go and how to do it. And that's what the group to do. In addition, I have the opportunity as a Vistage chair working with each one of my members on a monthly basis as well in a coaching session. It was in my coaching session in May of 2012 uh, when it, it, when we couldn't do it anymore. We basically had reached the end of our rope. And it, I was sitting down with my Vistage chair and I said, Pete, we're going to close the doors the 1st of August. Um, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm 57 years old. I've learned more in the last 5 years of going through hell than I ever learned in 20 years of great success. And my chair just kind of smirked a little bit. And he said, have you ever thought about being a Vistage chair? And literally from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, I was electrified. I just had this surge that was, wow. And so that's what I decided to do. And what economically, it's a good business, but it's not what I had before. However, I enjoy it a lot more. The opportunity to work with CEOs, presidents, and owners of companies and help them make better decisions and become better leaders and achieve better results. And so that's how I became a Vistage chair.
Cool. That's I'm picturing like some kind of ritual, like, the passing on the baton, like with the cloak and the, a robe or something. You are now worthy of leading a group.
Well, it's been a blast. I probably processed over 10,000 issues in my over the last 12 years, and in the years before I went there, because in our company, all of our on the several companies that we had in the investment fund, um, the uh, each person was an operating partner, and I was the managing partner, and so I coached my operating partners rather than brand that division. I coached them how they could build it and grow it and stuff like that, because that was what I was learning in Vistage. And so that was kind of the start of what I did. And I was able to, Vistage was nice enough to let me participate. And I built 3 groups in Los Angeles and had a great time running those groups. Um, one of my It was fun to watch those companies. I've had 3 companies that all had under $100 million in revenue. One had 20, one had 50, and one had 80. And over the subsequent years of working with them, and they all sold for just about $950 million. These are companies that had turned themselves from not not technology-driven companies to become technology-driven companies. And that's one of the big reasons that happened.
So that happened 3 times over the last 11, 12 years, or 12 years.
Well, and one of the highlight of life, if I could put a cherry on top, I worked with a company that had about $40-50 million in revenues, and they were starting their B round, and I helped them and worked with them. He was a part of Vistage, and I worked with him through his B and C rounds. And this past year, they sold their business for $7 billion. It was Service Titan.
Yeah, $7 billion. It makes your real estate company look tiny, even though that was massive. That's I mean, we'd probably have a whole episode on that. So Service Titan, in which when I first joined Vistage, I got to hear about them because I know another member worked with them, and I mean, they were already on a rocket ship, so it was fun to talk about. But I mean, like, my question here is,
Well,
there's people listening. Oh, go ahead.
maybe I'll go off on a tangent just here, if you don't mind. when I first joined Vistage, my very first meeting, I'm this 33-year-old kid, and there is this, and one of the great stories that I love to tell about Vistage is that there was a gentleman who was Chinese from Taiwan, and when he came in, and he had 2 sit-down Chinese restaurants, and he was so frustrated that he couldn't make more money. And he says, I've got to figure out ways to make more money with my Chinese restaurants. And so the group processed that issue, and over time, he came back and he decided that he was going to do QSRs, quick service restaurants, providing Chinese food.
So you were there right when he was processing this issue, which is what we do in Vistage. You know, you got a problem in your company, you take it to the group, like, help me out, guys. And so he brought this issue with the little Chinese restaurants, two restaurants. He's like, I need to make more money. So
And that was where it ended up, is because there was basically hamburger joints and stuff like that. There weren't a lot of QSRs, but QSRs were just quick service restaurants were starting to expand. And I'll never forget that when he told us that he was going to do this, we all looked at him like, that's pretty cool. Will anybody buy Chinese restaurant quick serve? And he grew that business. And about, I don't know, 6 months later, he came in, maybe a year later, he came in and he says, my issue is I need to grow this to $100 million. And we're
like within the 12 months of that.
And we're looking at him going, okay. And the last time we actually worked with him was when he decided that he would tell us that his new dream and what he wanted to do was $1 billion in revenues. And now that business probably does about $4 billion. And it was Andrew and Peggy Cherng. And obviously it was Panda Express. Everybody can figure out that one.
Well, now that you mentioned it, yeah. But that's crazy, because everyone knows Panda Express today, and you're just used to seeing them around. But the fact that you were there in the room when, like, the idea for Panda Express, basically, because before that, there was no fast food Asian. And in fact, today, they're one of the few. There's not a lot. Like, they dominate that market. So being able to be exposed to these, I don't know, for me, like, being part of Vistage gave me a lot of confidence, because I'm sitting here with these other CEOs that are doing $100 million a year, $50 million a year. PacBiz is not that big. I think being exposed to that, like seeing these people, getting to know them, because these groups, they're not huge groups, right? Like, there's 10, 15, maybe 18 people.
Typically about 10 to 18 people.
Yeah. So we're not talking about a massive room of like 100 people in a workshop or something. This is like a group that you meet with once a month, and you guys know each other, you have each other's back. So for me, that gave me so much confidence, because just like you, when I joined, as 2019. So I was 34, I think, when I joined. Not too much different ages than you. And I was nervous. I'm like, what? I don't belong in this group. Like, my business is too small. I think they made an exception for me to be in here. And, but being around it, I think for me, it was like, all these guys are normal. Like, there's nothing that they are doing that I can't do. And so did any of that rub off on you? Like, being exposed to all this, all that craziness of like what you could do in business?
Every meeting, I would go home and go, wow. And what the first 6 months I didn't do it, but after that six months, I recognized I need to write down all these things. And that was really what began how I planned my growth of all my businesses, was based upon the feedback I was getting in. I may not have done it the way they wanted it done, but I did it, but it caused me to think and recognize, here's an idea that I can take and make it happen.
Yeah, because there's obviously more than one way to do everything, but there's definitely some wrong ways to do stuff that, unless you get those different perspectives, you might not realize that you're going down the wrong path.
Exactly. And one of the things we do in Vistage is, when you process an issue, we don't just talk about it. Is that what do we do with it?
Yeah.
We put it on an action summary form. to report back when you come back the next month. And if you got 15 CEOs sitting in the room and you come back and say, oh, I didn't do anything, you didn't want to do that, do you?
Yeah, there's definitely been times where, yeah, it's like, Eric, this is what you said you were going to do last month. What's the update? I'm like, oh, did not get to that. And yeah, I mean, it's going to stay there because we cross it off once it's complete. And if it's not complete, okay, we're going to check back next month. And there's stuff that, I mean, it's a great way to hold yourself accountable, because I think for me, I say all this all the time with business leaders, like, who is out there holding yourself accountable? Like, maybe you got a spouse, but even then, like, they're not going to be, I don't think you're going to have a great relationship with your spouse if they're watching you 24/7. You need to be motivated yourself.
A lot of companies look at their executive team and say, well, this is my team. And when you have your executive team and that's all you listen to, you're basically taking in your exhaust fumes because you're not generating new ideas. You're just repeating those ideas. And to sit in a room where there's 150 to 200 years of experience of being a CEO, one of the things that helped me was it helped me understand what a CEO was to begin with. And that's one of the things that I love, is to be able to work with people and help them do the aha idea.
Yeah. Well, and again, going back to the Panda Express thing, I mean, being there, that's the ultimate aha idea, I guess. Not every idea that pops up in Vistage is going to turn into a
No.
$4 billion a year company. But there's always that potential too, which makes it fun. You never know, what conversation what conversation leads to a deal that leads to something else and something else. And I think for me as a business owner, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, like the optimism you have every day. Oh, I don't know, like, who might call me today that could change my business forever? Because I think a lot of us were in that position where one phone call
Mhm.
could change everything possibly. But in reality, I mean, those calls don't happen very often.
One of the things that I recognize more than anything else is that success, some people have great success in a very short period, but it just takes just continually focusing on the next step, the next step, the next step, so that you, because you have to build it. And some companies are built really faster because there are opportunities or whatever goes on, but everybody can become better leaders. And to be able to make better decisions when you surround yourself with experience and make more money. And that's really what Vistage is all about, is helping their CEOs and presidents and owners uh, make better decisions so they can become better leaders and make more money. I and that's what my goal is. When I going back to when I became a Vistage chair, um, I was pretty beat up, and
Well, yeah, you just went through the crazy, implosion of the market, losing that company.
and I was sitting with my Vistage chair when I was telling I had this experience. And what I recognized when I went home from talking with him was that my passion, if I'm going to be a Vistage chair, is to make no one ever go through what I did. And that is my passion. And that's why I am a Vistage chair right now, is just to make sure that I help my CEOs and other individuals in this world to be able to have those opportunities to succeed and not go through hell.
Yeah. And I mean, you take a company, like, I saw this stat yesterday, which was kind of mind blowing, that I think within 5 years, 67% of companies that reach the Inc. 5000 go out of business within 5 years. That
Whoa.
was what that I know, maybe I need to double check that. Well,
Wow.
I saw that from a slide from a workshop yesterday, but I couldn't believe that. And
I could believe it.
you could believe. So why do you think that is? Because you have more experience with this. For me, that doesn't seem like that shouldn't happen.
It's because they are going over the same situations and same situation, you have to get outside of that one. I've had several top speakers who all say every company needs to have a peer advisory board and an executive coach. And that's what's made, if you talk to the people that made it, most of them all said those were the two things they had. Was somebody that where they could go and get other ideas and viewpoints. Because when we process an issue and you're doing clarifying questions, are your questions the same as somebody else's questions?
Yeah, no.
Or somebody, because that's thinking outside the box now. Those questions are coming from people who are looking at the situation completely different. And so they ask questions that cause people go, oh. And so to me, that's really the challenge, is because they start to believe in themselves.
Yeah, and it's one thing I find really fascinating too is the dynamic in our group. Like where we want to see each other succeed. And so when you keep coming back month after month after month with the same issue, and maybe you're trying to present it to the group in a different way, like, oh, this is a completely different issue, guys. And we're like, no, it's not. This is the same thing. You're just buttering it up and making it look different. But like, we really want to see those people succeed. So it's not like it's just I don't know where you would get that anywhere else where you'd have these other business owners, because I have business owner friends and we talk, like we go out to a Suns game or go
Yeah.
out drinks and talk about business, but I can't see them like, Eric, I'm going to check in with you next week and make sure that you got this solved, or we're going to grab lunch so we could talk about it. And like that's the kind of stuff that happens in our groups.
It is. And I love it. But also in my one-to-ones coaching sessions with each one, I try to push them to places that they weren't thinking about, or possibly had not fully vetted, and so I try to push them, and they give me the privilege of pushing you really hard. and and because I've been through a lot of stuff. I've spent 10,000 hours coaching, and to be able to help probably over 100 CEOs, presidents, and owners of companies, of leadership, like, has been one of the great privileges of my life.
Yeah. Well, it is it's been an honor to be part of the group and to learn, because I mean, I don't know how I joined a different group when I joined Vistage, and he was a former, I think he was a CEO of a semiconductor, um, like he was in that space, and he was like on his way to retirement. So Fred absorbed us into his group. I think there was like two or three of us. That was like 2020, I think, maybe.
Somewhere in there.
So about like 6 years ago now at this point, and the group I was with was small, like there was three of us. So that's where I really felt intimidated, because I was like, do I stay in this group? I mean, I don't know. So it was cool though, like right away seeing the other members, and getting to work with you. I think, and nothing against the other guy with the other coach, but I mean, you 10,000 hours, right? Like you've spent so much time coaching people, and I've spent so much time sitting across from you being coached, that I already know half the time what you're going to say before you say it, or the question you're going to ask. So sometimes I could just have a one-on-one session with myself in the mirror and be like, this is what Fred would say. And then I'll go do it. But I mean, but that, because you already know, like, the, it's good stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
I know already that I need to get pushed back on these things. And if I go talk to Fred about it, he's going to ask these questions. So I need to go work on it. But I mean, that's growth. That's learning. Like that's what we have to do as leaders to get better, right?
Well, and going back to something we talked about earlier, Eric, is kind of what's going on in the world today. And really, we're hitting a position, or a place that the animosity and the anger and a lot of stuff that's going on, and with throughout the world. People several members have asked me what my thoughts are about this situation, what's going to happen, and I've lived through a few of these things, uh, and and we could succeed in this time, but we have to play together,
Mhm.
because the team is going to take each other to that level. And it's not going to be one person doing it and nobody else. It's everybody trying to make everybody successful, because the positivity of overcoming the negativity of what's going on in the world is difficult to do. To be able to see opportunities and to feel positive that you can make those things work. And to me, that's one of the biggest challenges that all executive coaches and Vistage has a Vistage Chair group, which is all the chairs in Phoenix. We get together and have to eat our own cooking. and that's really what presentation I'm making in our April meeting is learning and development on positioning individuals, getting people to figure out how they can get their head out of the challenges and focusing on the challenges and the anxiety and the issues like that, to know that you do have opportunities.
So what's one piece of advice you'd give to a business leader listening right now that's like, okay, that sounds good. How do I do that?
Well, if you want me to be flippant, join Vistage.
Step one. Okay.
The first thing is that when I talk to a lot of presidents, CEOs, and owners, one of the things I find out is that they're not leaders; they're managers.
Hmm.
And if you're a CEO, president, or owner of your company, and you're managing the business, you're wasting a lot of talent, because if you build an executive team around you, they can move the company, which allows you to focus on where we're going and how we might be able to get there. I call it seeing around the curve, seeing what's around that curve. And to me, that's one of the big things is you need to develop an executive team. When I joined Vistage and when I was back, my chair worked with me for 4 years to get an assistant.
4 years.
And because I was the bottleneck in everything that was going on in our business, because it had to go through me. And when I did that, that was when all of a sudden our business changed. But I was stubborn because I wanted to make sure every I was dotted and every T was crossed. And you're a manager then. You're not leading. And to me, is one thing, is to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I a manager or am I a leader?
That's a good question. And if you haven't asked that question to yourself in a while, because your roles change all the time, and maybe at one point you started out as a leader and slowly, piece by piece, you've now become a manager, and maybe you're questioning why am I doing like that? You're not happy with your day to day, because I mean you've coached people that end up being managers.
Yeah.
And like, what does that feel like for them when they're in that mode and then they finally get out?
Well, I have a second group that I have, which is called a key group, and those are people who report to CEOs and are typically our number twos, and they're the people that are being groomed to take over the business when the CEO wants to step away or sell the business, and and part of the challenges that they feel is when I'm being probably a little bit too strong on the management side, but when you have a CEO, president, or owner who is managing those C-level executives, you're spending all your time doing the work that should be done by somebody else, that can be done for somebody else. So train, teach, grow, hire the right people, getting the right people on the bus. And when we talk about getting the right people on the bus, the first thing is to get the right people on the bus. And that's making sure that the person you're hiring fits the culture of your business, because nothing destroys businesses and groups than having a bad person that's not a good fit. Then you can look at getting the right person in the right seat. And I'm going to steal something from EOS. EOS is an enterprise operating system. It's an organization out there that helps leadership teams to get together and work together. They have something called GWC. And so, my last piece of advice is that double GWC is really one of the most, something that I'm working with all of my members to do, is that G is we get it.
Mm-hmm.
W is we want it. and C is we have the capacity to do it. And if you look at a project, do we really get that project? Do we really understand that what that opportunity is? Do we really want that opportunity, or are we just doing it because we need more business? And C is, do we have the capacity to actually make it work? And so those would be my two things.
Yeah, it's a very powerful thing that, when being part of Vistage, I don't, maybe not every group is like this. Definitely our group, we have a lot of people that use EOS. So, and like PackBiz, we've been using it now for 6 years ourselves. But that whole GWC thing is really an interesting thing. I think that part is not the tough part. The tough part, and now this is my next question for you. Now you looked at your team, and now maybe you have like a family member that's sitting in a seat, or the person that was with you from day one when you first started that company, and now whether it could be things in life. Maybe they have kids now and they have different priorities, whatever the reason is. Uh, they don't fit anymore. How do you deal with that? Because I think for business leaders listening and watching right now, I think the ones that make those hard decisions, have those hard conversations and move the business forward, the ones that start separating themselves from the ones that can't make that decision. And then, because I think there was something that we talked about a few months back that has really stuck with me. Like, is your business a lifestyle company, or is it I forgot the other one that they said, it was like
A legacy.
yeah, like, but are you trying to build a company, or is this like a fun thing on the side that makes a bunch of money and you just get to play business on? But basically, right?
Yep. And the question is, what would you
How do you
how you
deal
handle
with that? Like,
that?
if you have
Okay.
someone that's like a key position that that's critical, and you need to, and look at you're listening to this, the name is in your head as you're listening to this. You already know the person that
Yep.
we're talking about here, and you know what you need to do, but you can't pull the trigger.
And I'm going to go back to GWC. I basically, and the reason I'm using GWC, because if they don't get it, if they truly don't understand what they're supposed to do and how they need to do it, train them up. If they're not willing to be trained up, then they don't want that position.
Yeah.
And they'll never have the capacity to do it. And I have watched where you have CEOs, owners who are pleasers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just can't pull that trigger. They can't make, older employees who've been there a long time, who are stuck and can't change, family members. And I have two companies right now where the owner has had to make some very difficult decisions with their leadership team. And those choices that he made changed the company and has put them back on track to be able to be successful. And it's a hard thing to say, but at the end of the day, if you don't get it, you don't want it, and you don't have the capacity, it is not going to succeed. That person cannot succeed.
Yeah, and do you have any like specific examples that, I mean, without saying specific names or anything, but I mean, you've seen it on the other side where they made that choice and now their company has gone into a completely different trajectory, right?
Well, the one I'm talking about right now has not is now in starting to make that move, and the em- the individual that is still working in the company was the roadblock, and he had been there from the time that the business been launched.
Mhm.
So they were best friends, and they launched and helped, and so it's been a situation where he's been in the company forever, and he's basically learned that he could not do anything and get away with it, and the CEO, the president of the company, had to go to the CEO and says, "We've got to get rid of him." And for 5 years, he's allowed him to continue to uh, do stuff that just never allowed the company to succeed, because he was the cog in the wheel that didn't have the capacity to make the job happen. And that just changed a month ago. And already in 1 month, they're seeing a tremendous change. And the CEO, the owner CEO said, "Man, I can't believe this is really cool." He says, "Why didn't I think of this before?" I think about this before, but
Yeah.
but I being a CEO is not always a comfortable job, and it and I know that a lot of companies don't have boards, and so uh, you don't have a board you're responsible to,
Mhm.
but you do have senior leaders
Mm.
who basically are your board, and they need to hold you accountable. Does that make sense? That same kind of like a board who
Yeah.
is helping the company move forward.
And I think for a lot of maybe younger business owners or people who maybe the business isn't at that level, they don't even realize that that's how a lot of bigger companies work. But yeah, you're not out there making decisions on your own. Like you might see Mark Zuckerberg, the face of Meta all the time, but there's a whole bunch of people over there telling him what to say or do. And I don't, like you said, the control that they have, and maybe Facebook is a bad example. Like you might have a little more outsized control than most, but in a traditional company with a board, they you have to answer to them pretty significantly.
They do unless you're Elon Musk and you own the company yourself. But even in Musk's situation, I tell you, the guy is a leader. He is a visionary. Where do we go now? Where do we go now? He's always looking for opportunities there in the marketplace. And uh, he's not the most liked guy in the world, but that's not what his business is about.
Yeah.
His business is making money for his investors, which is himself.
Yeah, this is true. Well, that could be a whole other episode that we could unpack. But um like to kind of wrap up this conversation, because I mean, as you're answering stuff, I'm like, man, there's another question I could ask. There's another question I could ask. There's so many lessons that I've learned. But there is one thing I want to touch back on that we didn't talk about in Vistage. That it's one of my favorite things in Vistage, and it's the guest speakers that come in and talk to the groups, and it's like you might think about going to a conference somewhere, like traveling out of state, and there's a keynote speaker on stage. You're like, man, I've seen some of his podcasts, I've seen him on different things, and I've read some of his books. And that's the kind of people that come to our group that, of 10 people, 12 people, and he comes and speaks to us one-on-one in like a little tiny small setting, which is I for me, that is one of I mean the obviously the peer advisory group stuff is
Yep.
huge, but also like the education that I've learned, because there's so many parts of PacBiz that are from those speakers, like EOS.
Well, can I give you an example of success?
Yeah.
We had a speaker that came in, and his name was Chris Jennings. I'm going to give him the hype. And he's on sales, and so what he he talked about a lot of stuff, but one of the things he talked about was that in football you have offense, defense, and special teams. When you ask coaches who won the game, normally it's the special teams. Who's your specialty team? Special teams. And this individual it has a productions company that puts on conferences and does all the screens and the front of house stuff with a video and stuff. And he went to he had a sales team. He went to, but they weren't making as much progress as he wanted to. And so he sat down and thought about with me and that, well, who would be my special teams? And we came up with his project managers who are responsible for putting on those productions. Who's the person who talks with the client the most? It's the project managers. And so their project managers now are the highest selling group in their business. And they went from about $6 million several years ago to over $30 million this past year. And it's because they they took one idea from Vistage that now has changed their company.
And for those of you guys who maybe are not like you hear these big numbers or you're like, I want to get there one day. It that is a big deal to go from six like we've been trying to grow PackBiz for years and years and years. And I mean to go from that size to where he's at today. And um, for me to be a part of the Vistas group and see that growth and see that, and without giving too much details on the specific company, but I know like we were all there together through the beginning of COVID when it was like business went to nothing. And so he essentially in the last 6 years, he went from like zero to where he's at today, which is again, I go back to the inspiration that you get from the other people and to hear people like Chris Jennings come and talk. I mean, it's a big part of our sales process as well in our company. And there's like the advice you get from a lot of people the last couple of years now, like when you have a problem, oh, just chat GPT it. Go look it up on chat GPT. Like, all right, you're gonna get some generic answer to solve this problem for your business versus this guy that has a proven concept that has worked with thousands of businesses all over the country, knows it works. You know, the difference between going that route versus, some generic advice you might get on Chat GPT, really powerful.
Well, when you talk about those speakers, and one of the things that I wish that I could get my members to realize is that this great opportunity of having these great speakers come in and do a workshop with you rather than just talk to you, and is that those individuals all will take your phone call and talk to you, and you just had an experience with that with somebody.
Oh yeah, definitely. With Derek Maines, he was one of our speakers, and he just put on a workshop recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact. And so I was able to attend that and just get a refresher on some of the stuff he taught about process mapping. And but it it's someone that I've gotten to know now, and we have a relationship. I take him to Suns game, or I've taken him to the Suns game, and he's going to be a future guest on the podcast. So look out for Derek Maines in a future episode. But these, yeah, it is incredible the because it becomes part of your business. Like all these little people, all these little things that they come in and they teach you about HR, teach you about hiring, teach you about how to exit the company, I mean, trying to think of some of the topics that we've covered over the years. Like there's great neuroscience, how the brain works. Like that was the most recent one. And I'm still trying to unpack like all of the things that you could do with it. I mean, probably just from one of these lessons alone, you could spend the next year like, how can we implement this and roll this out? And then the next month there's another one, and then there's another one. So there's no shortage of education. I think that the interesting challenge as a Vistage member is to figure out what are the things that fit best with your company, and and implementing it and holding yourself accountable. Because I think for me, and I think this is something that you're always as a coach trying to make sure we don't do, but someone comes in and they do a workshop and you're like, then you turn around to your team, okay, put this in place now. And you're like giving them a day and it's like something that's going to take 6 months. And then next month there's another, oh, hey, put this in place. So
It is a challenge.
it is.
It is a challenge. It's the new idea of the month.
But again, even if you don't fully there's no way you can implement all those ideas because there's so many, but every month. And I think going back to Vistage, they're really good about like, what's the one takeaway that you can implement in the next 30 days that we're all going to talk about next month to make sure that you do. And y- just that little thing, make sure that I roll something out or get something out. And your business, if you do nothing else in your company but that, like at least you're moving your business forward and making it better. And you do that month over month,
Mhm.
year after year, you're gonna get better.
You cannot get better unless you are introduced to new ideas.
And where do you get new ideas from?
And that's a challenge. And it's one of the benefits of Vistage. And it's, the peer group is another benefit. And hopefully I'm a benefit.
Oh yeah, and The one, and well, I'll end with this to discuss here is the one-on-ones too. And I'll share this as someone that's been again part of Vistage for these many years. Is I, I could not imagine the challenges that I've been through in this company. Through COVID, where we lost half of our business overnight. I got my business partner out of the company, bought him out so that I could run this thing just myself. And then just everything, you lose big clients, stuff happens. Right now, we're dealing with a major fuel crisis in Asia, where they're running out of fuel for the entire for all of a lot of countries there, and so every time there's always some crazy challenge to navigate. But I've got Fred over here that I can call, who knows my business, knows all of the stuff we've been through a lot together, and he could walk me through this stuff because I mean at the end of the day, all right, we'll be able to work through these things. We'll be able to figure this out. But to have someone that knows you like that and has the business background that could here, here's some ideas, and not even ideas, but is that the right path that you should be going? Because you're always the thing is questioning your answers. Is his favorite thing to say. He
I've,
sits there and questions everything. He doesn't even say anything. He just questions it, but then he makes you think.
which I learned a long time ago that if I tell you them the answer, it just goes in the back. It just goes right through one ear and out the other ear. But if I instead of answering their question, I question their answer, that's the truth. They just gave me the truth, and now I'm questioning that truth to make sure that really is the truth. And so within your company, it's a really great idea. A lot of leaders like to tell everybody what they do, how to do it. If you change that into a question and help them grow. At one time, I gave my members a full sign that they put on their desks. On one side, it said, "What do you recommend?" When people come in and ask questions, what do you recommend? And on the other side, it said, "Whose job am I doing today?"
This is great stuff. So if you guys are listening and you feel like, yeah, I am too deep in the weeds of my business, you're managing a bunch of people, I think this is great advice. Just for the next week, for the next 24 hours, when people come to you asking questions, ask them a question and say, what do you think? Yeah. Or what is your suggestion? What do you think?
Well, and what I've learned is by questioning, the answer that you now give is the answer that you think of and go, "That's what I'm going to do." And so it's a whole different game. Action versus talk.
Yep. Because I think we all have spent those weeks where it's like you've been in meeting after meeting after meeting. You're like, all we've done is meetings this week. I didn't even get anything done. And it's just all talking, right? And we need action in this company. And so, I mean, it's a good way to take it from just talking to action. So, well, Fred, I always got this last question I want to ask, and I'm really excited to hear about your answer on this one. With all you've accomplished in your career and with everything with Vistage, um, there's been a big career you've had. So I'm wondering, what an unfinished business do you have, Fred?
It's actually a simple answer. The ability to help other people. I love, love, love the ability and the opportunity to work with other CEOs, leaders, and owners, because I know that if, I had the opportunity back when in 2008 to go with my partners and start another real estate company and make a lot of money. And I didn't want to do it because what I recognized was if I go back to the company, I could only help that company. But if I can have, because of Vistage, if I could be a successful Vistage chair with 15, 20 companies that I get to work with, I'm making a much bigger impact. And so that's really that's what my unfinished business is to hope to find more people that I can have the opportunity to help them have greater success.
Awesome. Well, there's no shortage of people that need help with their business. So there's a good thing for you there. And maybe if someone's listening here, obviously you got to be in the Phoenix area. You no longer have your Los Angeles group. So, right.
Yeah, my Vistage practice is here. I do coach people around the country, via Zoom. And my practice is here, and I love my groups. They're special, and so thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to let people know if they were interested in connecting with you, because I know you're open for meeting with anybody, especially to talk about maybe potentially being your coach, because you said you coach people across the country, or possibly joining a group here in Phoenix. So if they wanted to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
My phone number is area code 818-468-0987. And if you call me and I don't know who you are, what I need you to do is make sure you leave a message, and I'll call you back because I have way too many phone calls.
I think if you're a business owner, your phone is always ringing off that.
That's one thing. The second thing is my email is Fred, Fred, dot Carpenter, Carpenter, at ferrislose.com. Ferris.
We'll put it on the screen, and
Okay.
we'll put it in the
Right.
show notes.
Right. Great. Thank you.
So yeah, you could email or call him, and I know you're also on LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
So Fred Carpenter.
Yeah, maybe I should tell people why Ferris lose.
Sure. I have no idea what the story is behind that, so let's hear it.
Ferris was a lighthouse that was built around 500 AD,
Okay.
BC, maybe it's BC, outside of the port of Alexandria. And it stood for like 700, 800 years. And so to me, that's what I do, is I'm Ferris. I'm there in the storms to guide you back home to the safety of the port. And then also I guide you to the open oceans of opportunity. And lose is light. So I'm the grounded lighthouse that's there, always waiting to help you. And I am the light.
Thank you for sharing that, because I have been wondering for years, what the heck does this email address mean? And I never thought to ask. I was like, maybe it's some Egyptian thing, or I don't know. So,
No, but
all right, now I know. All right, now I'll think of that every time I see your email. But, well, Fred, thank you so much for sharing. You had a lot of stories here, and I think maybe one day we could bring you back to share some more, because you got 10,000 hours of coaching stories locked inside your head there.
Well, thank you. I'm honored that you'd be willing to have me on your podcast. Thank you. And one of the things, I'm just going to throw this one out at the end. It has been a joy to watch Eric grow. And I really love the direction that he has got his company moving in right now. And if you haven't checked into the opportunities with him, I would encourage you to do so.
Thanks, Fred. And if you guys like what you heard today, we have more Vistage speakers and coaches in the future lined up as guests. And so we're going to have more people like Fred. And but if you like what you heard, please subscribe. You could check us out at Biz with Eric, or look for Unfinished Business Podcast with Eric Mulvin on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And so until next time, thank you guys so much for listening today, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
CEOs and visionaries shaping what's to come, building more than profit, lifting everyone. Every path's unique, but it takes a choice to grow. Set your goals and shape the way your future goes. Unfinished business, where people in tech connect to amplify. Unfinished business, human intelligence plus AI. Unfinished business, moonshot goals that launch you high. Unfinished business, listen close and you'll learn why. Subscribe, look for Biz with Eric online, and follow Unfinished Business on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen.